Finally, we've got the Achievers Workforce Institute surveyed 4,000 employees and HR professionals across 8 countries. And the picture is bleak. Only 1 in 4 employees feel appreciated. If 34% of the US full-time workforce switches jobs in the year, the cost of the turnover could hit $1.3 to $5.1 trillion. This range doesn't even include part-time workers or the additional 22% who are quote unquote considering a change. The talent retention crisis everyone predicted after the pandemic, it's here and it's worse than the forecasts. The gap between what employees want and what they're getting is almost comically simple. Employees who feel fairly compensated are 2.5 times more likely to be engaged, but only 17% feel fairly paid. Employees who receive recognition weekly are 12x more likely to find work meaningful and 56 times more likely to feel connected to company values. Yet only 19% say they're recognized weekly. The fixes aren't complicated or expensive. Recognition, appreciation, connection, these cost almost nothing, and companies simply just aren't doing them. For internal comms and HR teams, here's the part that should bother you. While your leadership is focused on RTO mandates, AI deployments, and office space strategies, many things we talk about on this podcast, your employees have already checked out. They're not debating whether to come back to the office, they're debating whether to come back at all. The Achievers data shows that 75% of employees say removing rewards, simple things like gift cards, or even recognition points would influence their decision to leave. We're penny pinching on the things that matter while CEOs collect 7-figure comp packages to mandate policies nobody wants. The research points to 3 cultural pillars that actually work: managerial recognition, connection, and rewards. None of these require big real estate decisions or enterprise software deployments. They require leaders to pay attention to the people doing the work, which according to this report is the one thing we're consistently failing to do. Jenni, the solutions here are truly insultingly simple, or should be, to companies. Recognition, appreciation, connection. None of that costs real money. Why aren't companies doing it, and what's getting in the way?
So it is insultingly simple. And I think you and I have both talked about this for a long time, about all the things that you need to fix your organization, to make it less chaotic, to build credible leadership, to create an experience that people enjoy. None of that costs money. It's just time. And I think that this is the root cause of the issue, is leaders don't want to give it the time. And I think that comes from the fact that they don't really know what that time needs to look like. So if I think about the work I do with leadership teams and directors and groups, and looking at how we can, build credible teams and shift that, they are making the time to come to workshops, with me, to have conversations with me about their leadership style. That's not going to fix it, right? There needs to be ongoing stuff that needs to happen, but they've identified this as a priority and they've made the time to do that. Now, not everybody is doing it. And if they're not doing it, it's because they're very good at saying all the right things, but not doing all the right things. And that is uncomfortable, but we are all good at that, right? I'm really good at saying I'm going to go to the gym every day next week and not doing it, right? I took my gym stuff away with me with a work thing this week. I didn't use it at all. So sometimes things don't happen, right? But we have to check in on our values, what we're trying to achieve, what's the outcome we're looking for, and then do the work. I genuinely believe that part of this problem is people think the solutions are too big. They don't want to give it the time because they don't really know what that time needs to look like. And they don't want to show a vulnerability in that they don't know that. And I think that's where it comes from. And it takes a lot. And I know it takes a lot for leaders and teams to pick up the phone, certainly to me, and say, we've got a credibility issue here and we need to talk about it. That takes a lot to recognize that. But find a trusted person, find someone to help you, find someone to make your organization great, and then absolutely smash it. Don't just bury your head in the sand and go, oh yeah, no, we just haven't got time, because you're just prioritizing other things. And I don't know how you're still thinking that is the right thing to not prioritize. I just can't fathom it.
I think the part that really surprised me was that, I shouldn't say surprise, maybe how big of an issue this was.
Okay.
That the basic level of that employer-employee relationship is very transactional. Of how many people just want to be paid fairly. They're not they're all these other things that drive like that. That was the driver. That and even down to where I've even at times probably trivialized recognition programs that included things like gift cards and points. And I'm like, that kind of stuff shouldn't matter. Well, it's not for me to decide. This data shows those things do matter. And those are very simple things to do. Paying people fairly is a simple thing to do. Having basic recognition programs that are one-way, two-way, omnidirectional, whatever, that's a very simple thing to do. And if just by doing those things, paying people fairly and recognizing them, what does that unlock in business? So why is that being ignored? And I even read today that when I said that some of these CEOs are like 7-figure compensation package, for some it's 8. Like I just saw Morgan Stanley's CEO has a new compensation package that's like somewhere in the $40+ million a year. That is just, it's hard to get your head around. And I'm not saying he deserves it, doesn't deserve it. That's not for me to decide. That's a lot of money being thrown around. So apparently things are quite good at Morgan Stanley. But again, do people feel like they're being paid fairly? Is there simple recognition? Like, are those things happening? They're just not.
No. And when you talk about being paid fairly, I always think this is a really hard, that's a really hard thing to answer, because what you think is fair and what I think is fair is very subjective. And I think that it's a hard conversation. So, and also, if you're comparing it to someone who's got a salary of 40 million, then you could argue that anything less than 20 million is not fair. Do you see what I mean? Like, I think fair as a word is really loaded, and I think we have to be a bit mindful of that. I also think it comes back to feeling valued. I think that's ultimately what people want. You know, there is an element of being fairly paid because that links to your value. But I think, you know, fairness is tricky when you've got such wild salaries like that. I mean, to your point, who knows if you know, that's the going rate. But you know, I just think there are so much basics. And we talked about this the other week about the Ross Edgley, who was swimming around the UK and he just wanted bread. Like, you don't need to skywrite. They just want bread. Like, it doesn't need to be big fanfare stuff. And I would hope that any leaders or HR teams listening to this are really pushing for that value to be shown in the way that is appropriate for the culture, but that it's on that list and it is a priority.